It's Spook Month again. G'day to all you lovely people and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy and today I'm going to give you another list of horror films to watch in October in honor of Halloween. I have actually done another list of 20 horror films that people could watch during October, which I brought out last year, and I'll link it somewhere up the top as well as in my description box below. This is a supplementary list of another 10 horror films that I thought people might enjoy watching. I'm sure you have heard of many of them, but perhaps you haven't. And also some of these films fall within several genres. They may not be, strictly speaking, a horror film, but they do have horror elements. And my criteria for choosing these films are any films that have me so tense that I'm sitting on the edge of my seat waiting to see what's going to happen next. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to be doing this list alphabetically, just the way I wrote it. Sometimes that's what happens. The first one is Alien, 1979, directed by Ridley Scott. Some people wouldn't consider this a horror film because it is science fiction. It takes place on a spaceship out in deep space. And Ridley Scott is just so damn brilliant at creating tense atmospheres. The way the tension builds and builds throughout this film is one of my favorite things about it. I'm always sitting on the edge of my seat, though I know exactly what's going to happen. It doesn't matter. He's just so good at combining visuals with the mood music and the acting and the very spare dialogue, which there really is in this film. And as far as I'm concerned, Alien has the best atmosphere I have ever seen in a film. You don't really get to see much violence or anything like that, and yet Scott is so good at building up that atmosphere, that sense of menace, that sense of fear and unpredictability that makes a great horror film. I think it is a wonderful example of a blending of several genres that can still be considered scary. I know a lot of people did find Alien very scary. So that is my first pick. The second is The Cell, 2000. I'm not sure who directed it, but it stars Jennifer Lopez and Vincent D'Onofrio. I love D'Onofrio. I think he's a very good actor and he is so good in this film. But what is wonderful about this is that it is unpredictable, but the visuals, it's almost psychedelic. I just love how it was shot. It is visually very lush. And whilst I won't say that the story is the best ever, I really loved this combination of scary elements, of suspense and amazing visuals. Jennifer Lopez is not one of my favorite actresses, but she does a good job in this. But D'Onofrio, yeah, he really steals the show if you ask me. Perhaps people wouldn't consider this a horror film, but it certainly has elements of horror in it, I think. Number 3 is Cloverfield, 2008. I stumbled upon this film by accident. I was just, channel surfing and I started watching it because I do love horror films and I watch all of them if I can. And this one was unexpected. It is a film that is mainly documentary style. And that, I think, just adds so much to the tension because you don't always get to see exactly what's going on. You just catch glimpses here and there. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was excellent. I was so surprised at so many of the things that happened in it. It is a story about this catastrophe that strikes New York. And we are basically following a group of young people who are trying to avoid being killed in this situation. I don't want to say anything more because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it. But this is a favourite of mine. I love watching it every now and again. I don't like all the characters in it, though some are just really good. And some of the acting is excellent, I thought anyway. Definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it. Number 4 is Don't Blink, 2014. I loved the premise of this film. It is about a group, I think, of 10 friends who go on this mountain retreat where no one is there. And then they start disappearing one by one. What I liked about this is its psychological elements, how people behave when they are under stress like they are. And I think when you are put into a situation like that, it can bring out the worst in you or the best in you. I'm not going to say it is the scariest film, and even the acting isn't the best, but the premise makes it worth watching, I think, anyway. And perhaps people haven't heard of it because it isn't an extremely successful film. Next, Event Horizon, 1997. This is another science fiction film about a ship that I think is going out to rescue another ship. It stars Sam Neill, who I adore, and Lawrence Fishburne, and quite a few other well-known names. I just can't remember them all at the moment. This one, you start watching it thinking, oh, it's a science fiction film. You know, they're going to rescue somebody. And then it just completely changes. And what happens is so strange that you kind of have to watch it, I think, more than once to really understand what the hell is going on. I really enjoyed it. Of course, you know, having good actors in a science fiction horror film just adds so much to it. They can convey so much more than, say, some of the actors you see in certain horror films. You know, you have somebody with real acting chops who can convey feelings of dread, feelings of fear, things like that. And that just makes you also very tense. It's an older film, but it's definitely worth watching, I think. Number 6, Friday the 13th, brought out in 1980. There have been a lot of remakes of this, I think, and they have a lot of sequels. But the first one, I think, is definitely worth watching, though it has dated, no doubts about it. I think it was also Kevin Bacon's first role. It is about a group of camp counselors who are getting killed at a camp. Crystal Lake is the area where the camp is. Oh, it's funny I remember that, but there's so many sequels you can't help but remember, I guess. Many people have seen this. If they haven't seen that one, they may have seen the remakes, but I always think it's good to watch the originals. I will say from that era, it is not one of my favourites, but it's definitely worth seeing. I think that the atmosphere is very well built up. There is a lot of tension, even though the acting is, again, quite mediocre, in my opinion anyway. Number 7, Rosemary's Baby, 1968. This one was directed by Roman Polanski, who, whatever his flaws, was an excellent director. He is very good at creating atmosphere. This is about a young couple living in a, I think, New York apartment. It stars Mia Farrow. It also has, I think, quite a few other names which escape me at the moment, but there is something strange going on in this apartment building. And Rosemary, I believe, learns that she is pregnant while she has these strange things happening in this apartment. I'm not going to say any more because I really don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it. But this is very well done, very well acted. The atmosphere just builds and builds throughout the film. You don't know what's going on. You are not given a lot of clues. And yet you are so tense, waiting to see what is actually going to happen. Well worth watching. Really a classic, I think. Number 8, Nightmare on Elm Street, 1985, the original. Freddy Krueger. Yeah, he's so famous. I think most people will know it, but I remember when it first came out, I was in my early 20s, and this whole idea of being attacked in your sleep was brilliant. It was like, God, I don't know if I want to go to sleep now. What if Krueger comes into my dreams? It just scared the pants out of everyone that I knew who had watched it. They didn't want to sleep. It's a bit like Jaws. When Jaws came out, oh, and I should have included Jaws, but anyway, yeah, when Jaws came out, nobody wanted to go to the beach because they were terrified a shark would attack them. And Nightmare on Elm Street had the same effect on people regarding sleeping. It was original at the time, I think. It was something that hadn't been done in horror films. And while some of the acting is, very average, the guy who played Krueger was awesome. Yeah, throughout all the films pretty much. Though they then started to ham it up by the later sequels, I think. Still, the original is well worth watching. Number 9, Scream, 1997. This is directed by Wes Craven, who also directed Nightmare on Elm Street. And this was one I could not predict. No, I really couldn't. I think I've mentioned this before that, films about supernatural things, supernatural beings, don't worry me at all. It's films more about real people, psychotics, serial killers. They are much creepier for me. And this one is more about everyday people. It is not supernatural. And it was just so well done, so clever. I remember watching it, and the very first scene had a death that just was so unexpected. I think that is one of the reasons why it is still so popular, because it just kind of turned everything on its head in relation to horror films. It was unpredictable and didn't actually follow all the horror film tropes. It kind of took them and threw them out the window, so you never knew what to expect. And the end was something I would never have guessed in a million years. I can still remember how shocked I was, and I loved that. I love it when a film can surprise me like that. Definitely worth watching, and Neve Campbell does a really good job in this, as does Courtney Cox. She is a character you love to hate, but she's really good in it as well. I also really like the sequels. Probably the fourth is not my favourite, and I think there is a new one out, but I haven't seen that one yet. And the last film is The Thing, 1982, starring Kurt Russell. This is about an expedition on the ice, or a group of scientists, I think it is, at some station at the Antarctic or the Arctic, I can't remember which one, and they find something in the ice. The Thing, yeah. I don't want to say any more, but this one was interesting because it is a confined space, a small station where everyone is probably getting on each other's nerves. They don't know who to trust, and this creature that they find is very adaptive. That's all I'm going to say. I thought it was really well done. I watched it when I was younger, and I watched it recently, and I still really enjoyed it. I enjoyed how the tension builds throughout this film. And I love Kurt Russell. Yeah, I'll admit it, I do. I think he's wonderful, and he was really good in this. Again, worth seeing if you haven't seen it before. They have done a sequel, which is rubbish, if you ask me, but the original was really well done. I think it was a John Carpenter film, but I could be wrong on that. Anyway, so that is my list of 10 more horror films that people can watch during the month of October. Let me know if you have seen any of these, whether I've inspired you to watch any of these. And of course, if you have any other suggestions, I'm always looking to see any good horror films. Well, that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you all very much for watching, And if you like this video, then you can do the usual. You can like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you have a lot of fun watching horror films during October. Until next time, take care. Bye. It stars Lawrence Fishburne, which it is, of course. It takes place on a ship in